It's Motivation Monday, a new week, a fresh start and another opportunity to level up. This is your moment to reset your mindset, refocus your energy, and realign with your purpose. Whatever didn't work last week, that's done. Today you move differently, stronger, smarter, more disciplined, because growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure and consistency, and showing up when it's hard. No excuses, no distractions, just elevation. The grind starts now, the discipline kicks in today. And the results, that's on you. Every move you make this week is building something bigger. So set the tone today, or spend the rest of the week trying to catch up. Because every Monday is a chance to rewrite your story, to step into a new version of yourself. This isn't just another week. This is your rebirth, Motivation Monday, powered by The Final Boss.
Welcome to Motivation Monday. This is the Final Boss Podcast. Listen, I got a great show, as I always do. I always have a great show for you guys, right? Man, I got a great show for you tonight, right? And we're going to get into it in a few minutes, man. But listen, right? Listen. Go Time 2, all aboard. No, I'm sorry. Go Time 2. The train has left the station. Comes out Thursday. It comes out Thursday. It will be out this Thursday, man. Make sure you guys go pick it up. The book link is at the bottom of the page, right? If you haven't gotten Go Time 1, go pick up Go Time 1. Go pick up Go Time 1. It's still available. It's going to be available, right? Go Time 1 is available. That's the one I was referring to. All aboard the Fired Up Train. Go Time 1, you see it. All aboard the Fired Up Train is available. Go get it before you get Go Time 2, which comes out this Thursday, right? Comes out this Thursday. Listen, man, we got a great show for you tonight. If you would like, make sure, right, you have questions, concerns, you want to be on the show, shoot us an email at info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com, right? To get on the show, to get in the town hall, to do all of the things, right? Now. Yes, thank you, Chikandi. I appreciate you. Hello, Wyatt. Salute to you. All right. Look, now, right? If you haven't, this is episode number 288. Man, we're closing in on 300. It will be here before you know it. Episode number 300, The Harvest Season 5 will be here before you know it. It is closing in. It is literally, we're approaching the countdown. So make sure that if you haven't, to get all caught up, go check out our website with all of our episodes. And that's www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. www.thefinalbosspodcast.com to see all of our episodes, right? Go see all of them. And for all of you who are new to the program, thank you. Yeah. I'm your uncle. That's right. I'm your uncle. Listen, if you have it, right? If you have it, make sure you do those two things, right? Make sure you do those two things. And as always, right? As always, the greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is for entertainment purposes only. This is the Final Boss Podcast. I am the Final Boss, man. We are here. I am here. Let's get ready to get into the show because I have a great show for you tonight, man. But before we get into tonight's show, I need to break something down for you, right? This, right? We're in season 4, The Rebirth, Arc 5, The Declaration, episode number 288. We're going to be talking about embracing the chaos, right? Now, I know y'all like, wait, embrace the chaos. Yes, embrace the chaos. But before we get into embracing the chaos, let me go ahead and get rid of the banners, right? So you can see me. Boom, banners are out of here, right? And let's go with the brass tacks of the evening. And here's tonight's brass tacks. Chaos isn't the enemy of order. It's the raw material of it, right? You don't defeat chaos, you process it, right? That, my friends, is the brass tacks. So, got the brass tacks out the way, and let's get ready to get into the beginning of the show with our first segment. So, to the four communities, final bosses, motivators, warriors, man. I say motivators. Didn't I say motivators? Motivators? Yeah. So, yes. See each and every single one of you in the community. Look, welcome back, right? Welcome back. And if this is your first time, then you're at the right place. This is Motivation Mondays, episode 288. And tonight we're going to be talking about something most people spend their whole life running from, right? And we're going to be talking about chaos, right? We're talking about the mess, the static, the moment everything you plan falls apart in real time, right? And I want to open up this segment with a question, right? With a question. And I need you to sit with this for about halfway through the show, right? Answer this question or sit with it. Sit with it, and then we're going to answer it. We're going to talk about it, right? What if chaos wasn't happening to you? What if it was happening for you, right? I'm gonna say that again. Sit with it, right? Because we're going to talk about it. What if chaos wasn't happening to you? What if it was happening for you, right? Hold that. Sit with it, right? Sit with that. Now, I'm not talking about the manufactured chaos, right? I'm not talking about the motivational poster version of that particular phrase, right? I'm talking about a real structural reframe, right? Every promotion I've ever earned in the military and the federal service and business came wrapped in chaos first, right? New systems I didn't understand. New rooms where I was the only one who looked like me. Right? Hard to believe, but it has happened. Right? New problems nobody has solved yet. We're talking about chaos, right? And every single time chaos arrived, it arrived before the level up, right? Not after it, but before it. And here's the pattern that nobody teaches you, right? Order is a lagging indicator. It shows up after the work. Chaos is the leading indicator, right? It shows up right before growth because growth requires your structure to break. If your life, your business, your mind feels like it's unraveling right now, I need you to consider the possibility that it's not falling apart. It's being rebuilt in real time. And rebuilding always looks like collapse from the outside. Or I should say from the inside. Oh, from both, right? From both. Now, you know my story. 23 years in the federal service, ranch chief. Yeah. Y'all know the story. But I want you to know what that job actually was, right? Because managing chaos on a timeline where failure wasn't an option. That's what was going on. Systems down at 2 a.m., right? Missions that couldn't wait for the outage or the outrage to make sense. I didn't get a good time. I didn't get a, how can I say this? I didn't get good at avoiding chaos. I got good at operating inside of it because it was chaotic every day, right? That's the skill, right? Not chaos avoidance, but chaos fluency, right? Now, that part, that pattern, I just mentioned, it didn't stop when I left the federal government either, right? Because building Sat Diginet, launching Go Time series, starting this podcast, and every one of those moves required me to walk in a version of chaos I hadn't fully mapped out, right? No manual, no guaranteed outcome, just a decision to move before the conditions felt safe. Because if I'd waited for safe, none of it would exist right now, right? And that's not bravado. That's just an honest accounting of how everything I built actually got built, right? And here's the opening loop that I want to leave with you guys, right? For this episode, right? And I want you to carry it through the entire show, right? Because somewhere in your life right now, there is a mess you've been labeling a problem, right? When it might actually be a promotion in disguise. And I'm not going to close that loop yet, right? So just sit with that, man. I know I'm telling you guys to sit with a lot. Just sit with that too, right? Add it to the list. Because we're going to build up the case, right? And we're going to be talking about why the chaos you're avoiding is the exact chaos you need to embrace. And by the time we get to the end, I'm going to close that loop with something personal, right? So stick around. Something I've never said out loud, so stick around, right? But we earn that, and that's what we do on the show, so don't skip it, right? And don't skip to it, right? So stick around. And look, from this point forward, here's your assignment before we get into it, right? I need you to do two things. One, name the chaos, not vaguely, but specifically, right? The relationship, the business decision, the career pivot, the health scare, whatever it is, put a name on it because you can't embrace what you refuse to name, right? Vague chaos stays scary forever. Name chaos gets workable. That's not a metaphor. That's a mechanism. I need you to write it down, right? Because we're going to come back to it. So let's get into it. Right? Now, we got to get technical because that's what we do. So let's get technical for a minute, right? Because most people are using the word chaos wrong. And the mistake is costing them their growth. Chaos and disorder are not the same thing. Disorder is randomness with no underlying pattern. Chaos, in the actual scientific sense, in the sense that chaos theory uses, all right, understand what I just said? Chaos theory is a system that looks unpredictable on the surface, but is actually governed by rules you haven't identified yet. That distinction means everything, right? When your life feels chaotic, your brain tells you it's disordered, right? It's random, it's meaningless, out of control forever, right? But that's almost never true, right? Because what's actually happening is you're inside a system whose rules you haven't mapped yet. The weather looks chaotic until you understand pressure systems. The market looks chaotic until you understand cycles. Your current season looks chaotic because you're standing too close to see the pattern, not because there isn't one, right? And that matters because how you label your struggle determines how you respond to it. I need you to call it out. Call out the disorder, right? Or look, call it disorder. And your only options are to escape it or endure it, right? Call it chaos. Real chaos, pattern chaos. And not a third option appears to study it, right? Learn its rules, because underneath every chaotic season of your life is a logic you can eventually decode, right? Where are my decoders at? Drop something in the chat, man, if you're a decoder, right? If you could read the pattern. And once you decode it, look, you don't fear that kind of chaos again. You've built a new capability, right? And I want to bring in the intellectual side of this thing, right? Because I don't hide from it anymore, right? We talked about that last night, but we're gonna get into it more tonight, right? And we're gonna get later on. We're gonna do a deep dive, right? Look, I'm a doctoral candidate studying artificial intelligence. And one of the foundational truths in that field is the intelligent systems are built by exposing them to controlled chaos, right? Not by shielding them from it. A model that only ever sees clean, orderly data cannot generalize it, cannot adapt to it. It breaks the first time reality gets messy, right? The exact same principle governs human growth. If your entire life has been optimized for order, you are functionally an overfit model, right? Brilliant in familiar conditions, fragile everywhere else, right? And this is the message that I want to give to my smarts, man, right? To my smarts community specifically. You already know how to think, right? That's why you're the smarts. You already know how to analyze. What I need you to do now is turn that same analytical mind on your chaos instead of your comfort zone. Stop using your intelligence to build bigger walls around the mess. Start using it to map the mess. That's the shift, right? Nothing less, right? We're not talking about less thinking, right? We're talking about different thinking aimed at a higher target, right? So that's a practical test that you can run right now and to tell the difference between real disorder and chaos. You just haven't decoded it yet, right? Ask yourself, has anyone, anywhere, ever navigated something structurally similar to what I'm facing? Talking about you, right? If the answer is yes, it almost always is, right? You're not looking at disorder. You're looking at a pattern that already has a decoded version somewhere. You just haven't found your access point to it yet. That reframe alone should lower your panic button by at least half, right? Let's lower the anxiety, right? So here's your reframe, right? Here's your reframe for this entire episode. The next time chaos shows up, don't ask, how do I make this stop? Ask, what pattern is this trying to teach me? That single question changes your nervous system's entire relationship to uncertainty. It moves you from the victim of the storm to student of the storm. And students graduate. Victims just survive. And we're not here to survive. We're here to graduate. And I owe you guys an apology, right? Because what do we do on Mondays? What do we do on Mondays? Man, we get on board the fired up train, baby. Let's go, man. Man, listen, the fired up train is in the building. It is ready to go, man. We are ready to get to the next destination. The next destination is the intelligence to read chaos as data, right? Now, I want to speak to my smarts again, right? You're not off the hook yet. So, smarts family, I need you to listen, right? Continue to listen. Because this community carries a specific burden that the other three pillars don't carry in the same way. You think for a living, right? And whether that's literal or just how your mind is wired, and thinking people have a unique, dangerous habit when chaos hits. You try to outthink it before you even let yourself feel it, right? You intellectualize the mess instead of processing it. And that delay can cost, right? And here's what I've learned, right? Here's what I've learned in my own life, right? And you know, we're going to go a little deeper later on, a little personal, little. We're going to go deeper and personal, right? Talking about versions, right? Talking about versions of ourselves. But to my smarts, listen, intelligence is not the ability to avoid chaos. Intelligence is the ability to extract signal from noise faster than everyone else in the room. That's it, right? That's the whole skill. Every smart person I know who's actually successful, not just credentialed, right, but successful, has the same trait. They can sit in a chaotic room and look at a chaotic data set, look at a chaotic quarter, and find the three variables that actually matter while everyone else is drowning in 40 variables that don't even matter at that moment, right? That's a trainable skill. And I want to give you the training method right now. Because when chaos hits, before you react, you better plan. Before you panic, you got to do one thing. You need to separate the situation into two columns. Column number one, always the facts. Column number two is always most likely going to be fear, right? Facts are things you can verify. Fears are things you're predicting, right? Most people, especially smart people, spend 90% of their energy in the fear column and call it strategic thinking. It isn't, right? It's anxiety, wearing a suit. Real strategy lives in the fact column, right? And look, I do this constantly. Man, all the time, right? In anything I do, I operate in a chaos native industry, right? Threats evolve faster than the defenses, right? If I sat in the fear column, imagining every possible breach, every worst case, I've never shipped a product, right? Vital Signals is based on this principle right here, and it's coming soon. Instead, the facts column tells me what's actually happening right now, what's verified, what's actionable. The fear column gets acknowledged and set aside, not ignored, but set aside. There's a difference. Ignoring fear lets it run underground and sabotages you later. Seeing it aside means you've looked at it, named it, and consciously chosen not to let it drive you. Now, I want to add something to that, right? All right? I'm going to add another layer. We're talking about a layer of facts, right? And we let's call it the layer of the facts versus the fears method, right? Facts versus fears. FVF, right? Because the first time you run it, you will notice something uncomfortable. Your fear column will almost always be longer, more detailed, more emotionally convincing than your fact column. That's not a coincidence. And it's not a sign your fears are more accurate. It's a sign your brain has had way more practice rehearsing worst case scenarios than it had practicing and cataloging verified realities, right? That's a rep balance, not a truth imbalance. And a rep imbalances get fixed with more reps in the right direction. And here's the deeper truth about that, right? So smarts community, listen up. Your intelligence was never supposed to make your life predictable. It was built to make you dangerous inside unpredictability. A calculator doesn't need intelligence. Intelligence exists specifically because the world doesn't hand us clean equations. If your gifts have only ever been used to create safety and order, you've been using a weapon as a shield, right? Although powerful, but not what it was supposed to be built for, right? So today, I want you to stop asking your intelligence to protect you from chaos. Start asking it to translate chaos for you. That's a fundamentally different assignment. And it's the one your mind was actually built to run. Listen, we're going to get personal, right? We're going to get personal about what happens when you spend years hiding exactly from this kind of intelligence, right? So let's go. Let's go. All right. Time for a cost confession. Time for a cost confession, right? So let's get to the cost confession. Next destination. All aboard the fired up train. Next destination. The cost confession. What hiding from chaos actually costs me, right? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, right? And this was real. Because for years, especially early on in my career, I chose order over growth every time there was a choice. I took the safer assignment. I avoided the room where I'd be exposed as not having every answer. I optimized for looking competent instead of becoming exceptional because competent felt survivable and exceptional felt like a spotlight I wasn't sure I wanted, right? And that's something that I learned, man, even in basic training. The drill sergeants would tell you, stay small, right? Because when you get big, everybody sees you, right? Shout out to the drill sergeant. Now, here's the cost. Every year I chose comfortable order over uncomfortable chaos. I was quietly voting for a smaller version of my life. And I didn't even notice the vote being cast. It doesn't feel like loss in a moment. It feels like stability. It feels like wisdom, right? I'm being smart. I'm being safe. That's what I was saying to myself. But stability without growth isn't wisdom. It's erosion with a better PR plan, right? Look, I could point to specific years, real years, where I know exactly where I gave up, right? Opportunities I didn't pursue because pursuing them meant walking into a room full of unknowns where I might have not looked like the smartest person present. Ideas I sat on for years. We're talking about Go Time. We're talking about this podcast. We're talking about business ventures. We're talking about all these things, right? Because launching them meant inviting chaos into a life I carefully ordered. I told myself I wasn't being strategic. Or I was being strategic, actually, right? I was being scared. And I dressed up the fear in a suit that said timing, right? That said timing. The confession underneath the confession is this. The chaos I was avoiding was never really external. It was internal. I was afraid of what happened if I let people see the full range of what I actually think, what I actually know, what I actually am. I ordered an environment, right? And I will let you control how much of yourself gets shown. Chaotic ones don't. Chaos exposes you, right? And I spent years choosing exposure avoidance over expansion, calling it maturity. And here's what changed it, right? Here's what changed it. It's the same thing that has changed over time, right? It's the same thing that changed over time. It is, man, right? It is. I was never avoiding what it was. I was afraid of what happens if I let people see the full range of what I was doing, right? What I had going on, right? Look, it's about exposure. Can you handle it, right? Can you handle it, right? Now, I was talking about what changed, right? And I mentioned to you, it was the same thing, right? I did the math, right? And on the other side of the ledger, yes, chaos costs you comfort, right? I say that all the time. Comfort is the enemy of growth. I say it all the time. But order, right? Order The wrong kind, the avoidant kind, costs you your ceiling. It caps you at whatever level you can control. And I got tired of being the most controlled version of myself instead of the most capable version of myself, right? And I want to name something else about that erosion because it's rarely just personal, because it spreads. It's like a virus. The years I spent choosing control competence over exceptional exposure didn't just cap me, they capped everyone whose growth was tied to mine. My team never got access to my full thinking because I hadn't decided to access it myself yet. That's the hidden line in the cost confession. It's never just the ceiling, right? Because if everyone's standing on your shoulders, who inherits the same ceiling without ever agreeing to it, right? And for my final bosses out there, listen up, right? This is your cost confession moment too, right? What has staying ordered actually cost you, right? Think about it. Not what has chaos cost you. We often obsess over the numbers, right? What has your addiction to order cost you? The relationship you didn't start, the business you didn't launch, the truth you didn't say. Sit with that number for a second because it's usually a lot higher than the cost of the chaos you were avoiding in the first place. We'll build on that later on, right? So keep track, right? Let's keep going. Let's get on board the fired up train. Let's get to the next station. Next destination is chaos at the level of the point where it's time to level up, right? And think about this. Where my gamers at? If you're a gamer, drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat if you're a gamer, right? Listen, every video game you've ever played uses the same design principle, and it's not accident. It's a mirror of how much growth actually works in real life. You didn't level up in the calm rooms, you level up in the boss fight. The boss fight is chaotic by design, unpredictable patterns, escalating difficulty, mechanics you haven't seen before. That's not a flaw in the game. That's the entire point of the game. And that's why I'm the final boss. I am the final boss. And to my final boss communities, I built this identity around a simple truth. You're not meant to stay in a tutorial level of your life. The tutorial is safe because it's supposed to be safe. It's teaching. It's teaching you the controls. But if you're still living in a tutorial mode at 30, 40, 50 years old, avoiding every fight because fights are chaotic, you're not being careful. You're refusing the game you already paid for with your only life that you have, right? Listen. Here's the mechanic that nobody explains clearly enough, right? Because the size of the chaos you're facing is directly proportional to the size of the level up available to you. Small chaos equals small growth. Massive chaos, the kind that makes you question everything. Listen, I had a moment the other day that brought this on right here, right? That brought this on. And I was emotional. I had big grown man tears, man. Big grown man tears, right? Because I was questioning everything. And look, that's not punishment, right? And I can talk to you guys. This is a community. This is what we do, right? And this is the game. Recognizing if you're ready for a bigger drop. Because bosses don't get harder because the game hates you. They get harder because you got stronger and the game is calibrating to that exact moment, right? Think about this, right? Think about this. Every time I've scaled something, launched something, the chaos scaled right alongside it, right? more moving parts, more unknowns, more ways to fail publicly instead of privately, right? If I'd waited for the chaos to reduce before I moved, I'll still be waiting. The chaos doesn't reduce as you grow. Your capacity to operate inside of it does. That's the actual skill tree you're leveling up to, right? So here's what I need my final bosses to internalize tonight. Look, stop asking, when will this get easier? That's the wrong question. It reveals you're still hoping for tutorial conditions in a boss fight season. The right question is, what capability is this fight trying to build in me? Because every chaotic season is a training montage disguised as a crisis, right? You don't see the montage set to music in real time. You only see it looking backward, but it's happening right now, whether you can feel the soundtrack or not, right? Whether you can feel it or not. And one more thing. Look, when it comes to boss fights, listen, in every game worth playing, the boss telegraphs its biggest move right before it lands. It's a wound up. It's a glow. It's something that tells you something, and it acts as a warning that it's coming if you know how to read it. Real life does the same thing, and most people miss this point, right? They miss the telltale signs. They miss the tell because they're too busy hoping the fight won't happen at all. The warning signs before your current chaos were probably there for weeks, maybe months before it fully landed. Learning to read your own life tells in patterns is half of what separates a final boss from someone who just keeps getting caught off guard by the same pattern on repeat, right? And here's your move right? This is what I need you to do. I need you to identify the final boss in your life. Identify the final boss fight. If it's me, then identify me as as the final boss, right? Identify me. Listen. You're in a fight. You're always in a fight. This is life. You're in a fight. I need you to identify the final boss. I need you to identify that boss fight, right? That you're currently in, right? The one that you're probably currently avoiding. Then ask yourself honestly, right? Ask yourself honestly. Am I under leveled for this attack? Or am I under committed to this? Those are two different very problems with two very different solutions. Under leveled means you need reps, mentorship, time. Under committed means you already have what it takes and you're just refusing to fight, to swing. You need to know which one you're dealing with before we continue, right? Because we're not slowing down. We're not slowing down. And the fired up train is ready. The fired up train is ready. And our next destination is the uncomfortable verdict. Look, you don't fear chaos. You fear yourself, right? So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about the uncomfortable verdict. Look, I want you to actually let this one land instead of deflecting it. Because deflection is the whole reason it needs saying anyway. You don't fear chaos. Chaos is neutral. Weather doesn't have malicious intent. What you actually fear is who you will discover yourself to be once the order that's been propping you up disappears. Right? Orders let you outsource your identity. Your title tells you who you are. Your routine tells you who you are. Your carefully managed image tells everyone else who you are. Chaos, on the other hand, strips all that away and leaves you looking directly at the raw material underneath. No title, no routine, no script, just you. And for a lot of people, including myself, at different points. That's the actual terror, right? Not the mess itself. The mirror the mess holds up. And this is the verdict. Because your resistance to chaos is very rarely about the practical difficulty of handling it. It's about the identity crisis that handling it would force you to, right? If you get real about the chaos in your business, you might discover you've been coasting, right? You might discover you've been coasting. If you get real about the chaos in your relationship, you might discover you're the common denominator in everyone that's failed, right? If you get real about the chaos in your own mind, you might discover you've been performing smaller versions of yourself for so long, you're not even sure what the real one looks like anymore. And we're going to sit with that thought process right there, right? Hold it, right? We're going to be talking about that later. So use that as a point of discovery, right? And I'm going to say the uncomfortable part out loud, right? A lot of the order that people build isn't peace. It's avoidance wearing peace outfits, right? Peace can survive contact with chaos. Avoidance cannot. If your calm shatters the instant something unexpected happens, that wasn't calm. That was a controlled environment mistaken for an inner state, right? Real peace is chaos tested. Everything else is just weather dependent. And for my warriors listening right now, this verdict is for you and you specifically, because warriors are the ones most likely to mistake toughness for peace. You can white knuckle through chaos and still be terrified of what it's revealing about you. Enduring chaos and being at peace inside of chaos are not the same achievement. I need you to stop settling for the first one and calling it the second, right? I want you to name it, right? I want you to name this verdict, right? And understand why it's harder to accept than it sounds. It's easier to say, oh, I'm avoiding chaos because it's inconvenient, than it is to say, I'm avoiding chaos because I'm scared of what I'll turn out to be without my usual armor on. Two versions, two differences. The first version keeps you comfortable. The second version is the one that actually holds you true to yourself and to most people, because true things move you, even when they sting going down, right? But that's the whole reason that the verdict exists, right? That's the whole reason. It's supposed to be uncomfortable, right? And here's an assignment, right? I got an assignment for you guys. Ask yourself one honest question before we end, right? If all my titles, roles, and routines disappear tomorrow, who would you actually be left standing? Who would actually be left standing, right? If the honest answer scares you, that fear is the real target of this entire episode. Not the chaos, but you, right? It's the compass telling you exactly which direction the growth is standing in, right? So let's keep building. Let's keep building, right? Man, I'm on a road. Next destination, let's get on the fired up train. Let's get on the board the fired up train, man. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Right? Next destination. Right? We're going to be talking about what AI systems teach us about human chaos. That's the next destination, right? Now, I mentioned a few times in this episode that, I'm a doctoral candidate, right? Studying artificial intelligence, right? Specifically AI foundations and ethical considerations. And I want to spend this segment showing you exactly why that field has completely changed how I think about human chaos. Because The parallel is almost too precise to ignore, right? Because in machine learning, there's a well-documented failure mode called overfitting, right? It happens when a model is trained on data that's too clean, too narrow, too orderly. The model gets extremely good at that specific controlled data set and then completely falls apart the moment it encounters real world conditions. Because real world conditions are messy, chaotic, full of edge cases that the clean training data never included. The fix isn't more order. The fix is deliberately introducing controlled chaos during training, right? We're talking about noise. We're talking about variation. We're talking about adversarial examples, right? Conditions designed to be unpredictable, because that's the only way to build a system that generalizes, that actually works when it matters, not just in the lab, right? Human beings work the same way. I don't think that's it's not a coincidence, right? It's not a coincidence. I think it's a fundamental principle of how many intelligence systems there are, artificial or biological. And think about how actually those things develop robustness, right? If your entire life has been training data of comfort, predictability, and controlled outcomes, you will overfit to comfort. You'll be devastatingly capable in familiar conditions and shockingly fragile the moment life hands you something over training that the training never covered. That fragile state isn't a character flaw. It's a predictable, almost mathematical consequence of insufficient exposure to chaos, right? Now, this reframe is about how parents, right? Or you know what? This is how I parent my own thinking. Let's say that, right? How I run everything that I run, how I build this podcast. I don't try to shield every part of it of my life from disruption anymore. I look for the productive chaos, the kind of stress test, right? A plan, a version of myself, or before reality does it for me on a much less forgiving timeline, right? I wanted the intellectual foundation laid first, plainly, because this isn't abstraction to me. It's literally what I study, and it's literally how I try to live, right? And there's one more piece of that research worth bringing in here, right? Because it applies directly. Because the models that generalize best aren't just exposed to chaos randomly. The chaos is introduced deliberately in calibrated doses at the right stage of training. That's the difference between chaos that builds you and the chaos that breaks you. Random, overwhelming, unmetabolized chaos can genuinely damage a system, human or artificial. The goal was never maximum chaos. It was always the right chaos and at the right dose at the right time, which is exactly why we spent this entire episode, right, on these protocols and tolerance building instead of just telling you to go seek out disaster, right? I didn't tell you that. And look, for my smarts and to my smarts community specifically, here's the takeaway to carry forward, right? Your intelligence was never meant to build you a chaos-free existence. The goal is not just unrealistic. It's actively counterproductive to becoming the most capable version of yourself. The smartest use of your intelligence isn't eliminating chaos from your life. It's using your intelligence to extract maximum growth from the chaos that has always going to show up regardless of how carefully you planned it. That's the actual application of everything we built across this entire episode, right? So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Next destination. Next destination is we're going to be finding order inside the storm, right? Finding order inside the storm. But now, now that we've established that chaos isn't your enemy, that it's not the exact mechanism behind your next level, and resisting it usually says more identity fear than practical difficulty. So let's talk about how you actually operate inside of chaos, right? Without drowning in it. Because embracing chaos doesn't mean abandoning all structure. It means building a different kind of structure, protocols instead of perfection, right? Perfection requires stable conditions to even be accessible. You can't be perfect inside of chaos. The target moves too fast. The protocols don't require stability. A protocol is a decision you make once in advance, so you don't have to make it fresh under pressure every single time chaos hits. This entire episode and this conversation is what we run every single week as protocol. It exists specifically so that no matter how chaotic the week has been, no matter what's happening in the news and business and life, that's a structure that holds the content together. The chaos changes weekly. The protocol does not, right? And I want you to build at least one protocol this week, right? For whatever chaos you're currently facing, right? Not a 5-year plan, not a perfect solution, a simple one, a repeatable decision, a repeatable decision rule you can execute even when you're overwhelmed. If revenue drops unexpectedly, protocol, not panic, right? Review the 3 core metrics, cut non-essential spending within 24 hours, communicate with the team within 48. If conflict erupts in a relationship, protocol, don't panic. Name the issue directly within the day. No silent treatment, no landmines, right? These aren't perfect solutions. They're pre-decided responses that remove the paralysis chaos usually causes, right? Now, here's why the patterns matter more than people realize. Because the exhaustion you feel during chaotic seasons isn't usually caused by the chaos itself. It's caused by redeciding everything from scratch every single time under pressure with your nervous system already activated. Protocols remove the tax. They let your discipline do the thing that they're supposed to do, the thing we built inside this episode, right? And you're able to actually execute without requiring perfect conditions or perfect clarity, right? The first time. Now, think about how much mental bandwidth gets burned I can't say it. I can't say it. It's on the tip of my tongue. What word is that? Relitigating, right? Jeez, I'm thirsty. Don't pay me no mind. I'm thirsty, right? Listen, relitigating the same decision every time a familiar chaos surfaces. If every argument requires you to redecide in the moment whether you're a person who stays calm or a person who escalates, you're spending limited willpower on the decision you could have made once in advance and never had to remake it again. That's the actual efficiency protocols that it gets you, right? It doesn't mean less chaos. It means less decision fatigue inside the chaos that was always going to show up, right? Chaos is always going to be there, right? Now, I want to caution you. I'm going to caution you a little bit here, right? Because I don't want anybody to mistaken what I'm saying for permission to over-engineer everything. Protocols work because they're simple enough to execute when your capacity is overtaxed. The moment a protocol requires 10 steps and a flow chart to remember under pressure, it stopped being a protocol and started being one more thing chaos can break. Keep it brutally simple. Keep it KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? If you can't recall your protocol from memory while stressed, tired, and caught off guard, it's not ready yet. You need to simplify it until it survives those conditions. because those are exactly the conditions it was built for. And this is the maturity move, right? This is the maturity move, right? And it's what separates people who genuinely embraces chaos from people who just claim to while quietly falling apart every time it shows up. Embracing chaos was never about liking the mess. It's about having pre-built protocols sturdy enough that the mess doesn't get to dictate whether you function. You don't need the storm to stop. You need a system built to run in the rain. There's a difference, right? Build one this week. Survive it, right? Look, we're getting ready to bring it on home. Next destination, right? Next destination, right? Next destination. We're going to be, I'm going to go over a little bit. Let's talk about action steps you embrace, right? Let's talk about action steps. Now, let's get tactical again, right? Everything we built across this episode needs to land somewhere real, or it's just a good podcast that you're going to forget by Wednesday. And here's a field protocol, right? 5 concrete moves, and I want you running these starting today, not someday, right? Look, I built this list deliberately in the order of the episode on purpose, so that each move pulls directly from the episode that you've already sat through, right? Instead of asking you to remember a brand new framework on top of everything that I've asked you to do tonight, right? That's intentional design, not laziness. The best action plans don't introduce new concepts at the finish line. They just organize what you already learned into something you can actually execute, right? So let's get into it, right? Look, move 1, name your chaos. Be specific. Write it down, right? Like I said earlier, vague chaos controls you. Named chaos becomes workable. If you haven't written it down yet, I need you to write it down, right? Write it down before we end, and we're getting close to the end, right? Move number 2, run the facts. Run the facts versus the fear, right? Create 2 columns. You have one side that says verified facts and the other side that says predicted fears, right? And notice how much smaller the actual problem looks once fear stops disguising itself as a strategy. Move number 3, identify what capability that specific chaos is trying to build in you, right? Not what it's taking from you, what it's building. You have to flip your mindset, right? Every boss fight has corresponding levels up. Name yours, right? And then move number 4, build one protocol, right? A pre-decided response you can execute without needing perfect clarity or calm conditions first. Write the trigger and the response in one sentence, right? Make it into a formula. When X happens, I do Y, right? Use that as an example. That's the whole protocol. Simple enough to execute under pressure is the entire design requirement, right? And then move number 5. Schedule 1 deliberate low stakes chaos rep this week from what we talked about earlier. One thing that stretches your tolerance on purpose at a scale that you can recover from. This is how you stop waiting for crisis to be your only teacher, right? And I want to be direct about what I kept on this list, right? We kept it to 5. We're not talking about 15 things. We said 5. A protocol you can't hold in your own head under pressure isn't a protocol. It's a document you'll never open when it actually matters. 5 moves is enough to complete and a few enough to be usable. If you try to run all 5 perfectly on day 1 and stumble, that's not failure. That's exactly what learning any new system looks like, right? Run them imperfectly before you run them well. Imperfect and moving beats perfect, and theoretical every single time, right? That's the field protocol. 5 moves. Every one of them is executable today, not someday. Not when things calm down, because they were designed to work without calm conditions, right? That's the whole point of everything that we've talked about, right? And for my 4 communities, listen, smarts, final bosses, motivators, warriors, I want each of you to notice which of these 5 moves you resisted the most while you was listening to them, right? That resistance is data. It's usually pointing directly at the move you need the most, which is exactly why it felt uncomfortable to hear. If move 1 made you flinch, your chaos is still unarmed or is unnamed, right? If move 4 made you flinch, you're never trusted yourself with a simple plan before. Sit with that before we begin the next destination. We're about to bring this whole thing together, right? And why we're heading in this direction anyway, right? Next destination before we close. The bridge, right? The bridge. And why we even talking about chaos, right? Give me 10 minutes. We're almost done, right? We're almost at the finish line. And I need to be honest with you about something, because this entire episode, right? And the one before this, think about chaos as promotion, chaos as data, chaos as fuel, chaos as the level up mechanic. All of it was true. And all of it was also a bridge to something I've been circling around for a while now and haven't fully said out loud on this show. And I've been doing this for a while, almost at episode 300, right? Everything I spoke on today about embracing external chaos, I learned by first refusing to embrace an internal one. The chaos of being fully seen, the chaos of letting people witness the complete range of who I actually am, not the edited, palatable, safe version, right? I've been comfortable showing for most of my life. I've talked today about federal service. I've talked about SatDigiNet. I've talked about Vital Signal. I've talked about the park. I've talked about everything. The books, the go-to. I've talked about everything, right? I've talked about the doctoral work, right? All of that is real, but there's a longer chaos underneath all of it, right? All of it that I built almost every my check, my check. Okay, good. All right, sorry about that. I talked about all these things, right? And there's a longer chaos underneath all of it that I built almost everything else with, right? I know I got it. I fixed it. Thank you. In some ways, right? In some ways, that's not, and this, what I'm speaking of is not a small admission for someone who spends every Monday telling other people to face their storms head on. I know exactly how it sounds, and I'm doing it anyway, right? I said at the top of the episode that I was going to close on something that that I've been working on, right? And I meant that. Okay. Something, right? Mm. Listen, there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on, right? Nothing you heard in this entire episode is without reason, right? It's not without reason. I structured it this way for a reason. This entire episode, right? Speaking of relaying it back to my own truths, right? Not wrapped in metaphors, but my own truth, right? And some truths, especially the personal ones, they land differently when the audience has walked the intellectual path to understand why the truth matters, instead of receiving it in a cold state, right? I needed to give you the framework. I needed you to hear chaos is fuel, not friction. I needed you to understand discomfort as training, not damage, right? Not that framework is built, or I should say, now that the framework is built. Um, what is going on? That's really weird. Now that the framework is built, and I could tell you the personal version without sounding like an isolated confession. It's the culmination of everything we just spent in this last episode. Because nothing you heard in the last pieces of the last thing we talked about at the last destination, all of it meant something. And it was leading up to this moment, right? It was the runway. And every runway exists for exactly one reason: to get something real off the ground, right? Look, I've sat with whether to say this out and say it on the show, but this is the arc of declaration, right? And I admit, it's one thing to teach a framework, it's a different thing to entirely hand the audience the actual unedited proof that the framework worked on a person, because the person that's teaching it was living it, right? But that's the whole difference between a motivational episode and an honest one. And after everything we built today, an honest one is the only version worth putting my name on, right? So here's the bridge, plainly, because everything I spoke on today about embracing chaos, I'm about to practice in real time right here as we close out in front of you, the four communities, right? And this isn't a motivational wrap up. It's me doing the exact thing I spent 14, whatever, how many segments telling you and asking you what to do. Name the chaos, facing the identity, fear underneath it, right? Not performing peace, but building it live right now. So let's go together. Let's get on board let's get on board the fired up train and get to the next destination as we close, right? And you're wondering what threw me off. That was a child abduction notification. And those always throw me off, man. Right? Yeah, they throw me off. But let's continue. Next destination, the closure. The apology I've owed everyone for a long time. And I want you to hear this, right? Because I need to do this and I need to do it right here, right? And I need to say it so a lot of people can see it, right? And I want to do this without softening it into something more comfortable than it needs to be. Because softening it would be exactly the old pattern this whole entire episode has been about. And trying to break those methods, right? And I'm apologizing for not, to everyone, I'm apologizing for not being my true self. That's right. I said it. I've been apologizing for not being my true self, not my performed self, not my strategically palatable self, my true intellectual self. I've spent most of my life playing coy about how much I actually know, how deeply I actually think, how far my mind actually goes when I let it run without editing itself for the room. I did that on purpose. And for the longest time, I did it. And I want to tell you exactly why, because the why matters, right? Listen, and this isn't for vanity purposes, man. This is me giving you the straight, right? And those who know me know, they know, right? Look, I was a straight A student. I was a gifted and talented programs. I was in every science, math program you could think of. I won spelling bees, man. I won science fairs. I had a GPA of 3.8 and above consistently. And growing up, that made me a target, right? I was teased constantly for being smart, for being what the other kids called a nerd. And I got into fights over it more times than I could count. And I want to say this plainly because it's true and because it matters to the story. Look, your boy never lost a fight. I never lost a fight, right? Not one. Not because I was looking for the fights, but because I refused to let being intelligent make me an easy target for people who decided smart and weak were the same thing. I was a nerd who could fight, and that combination confused people because it didn't fit the box they wanted to put me in, right? But here's what that season taught me. And it's the part I'm actually apologizing for. Because somewhere in absorbing all of that, I learned a valuable lesson. And that lesson is I never should have internalized, right? I learned that being smart wasn't cool. So I adopted. I built a version of myself that could move through rooms without triggering the old target on my back. I learned to dim it. I learned to play coy, right? To let people underestimate exactly how much I was processing, how far ahead I was actually thinking, because being underestimated felt safer than being fully and risking the old rejection all over again, right? And I carried that adaptation into adulthood, into rooms where it was no longer protecting me from anything. It was just quietly capping, right? It was capping me, as the kids would say. The exact overfitting we talked about earlier in this segment, right? Because I built a life, a career, right? Many years of it, partially inside a strategy designed for a middle school hallway that stopped existing decades ago, right? And I want to apologize to the people who only ever got a dimmed version of me. To my team, to my audience, some of you in the earliest seasons of this very show, myself most of all, for the years I spent negotiating my own intelligence down to a size I thought other people could tolerate. That apology is also the final closure of the open loop from this segment earlier. The chaos I asked you to name, the mess I told you might actually be a promotion in disguise. Mine was this: the discomfort of finally being fully seen. And I'm not dimming it anymore. Not the doctoral work, not the depth of thought behind the podcast, not any of it. Smarts, Final Boss, Motivators, Warriors, whichever community you belong to today, embrace your chaos the way I'm choosing to embrace mine. right now, out loud, unapologetically, and do it for real, right? This has been the Motivation Mondays, episode number 228. Embrace the chaos. I am the Final Boss. This has been the Final Boss Podcast. Season 4, the Rebirth, Arc 5, the Declaration, episode 288. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Thank you for joining us. Listen, man, embrace the chaos. And to all of those out there, man, it's okay to be smart. Go be smart, man. Go be smart. It's okay, right? Look, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there is an even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am here. We are here. And as always, be balanced, be equal, and be smart. And you know what, man? If I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I will see you again tomorrow at 9 p.m. with the Sensei, right? The Sensei will be back tomorrow. Talk to you and see you then. Have a great one.